Dinner's ready. Eric, his wife Claire, called from the kitchen.
Eric hunched over the desk, a magnifying glass pressed to his eye. He poked and prodded at the splinter, a tiny, insidious thing lodged deep in his palm. He gritted his teeth, each failed attempt amplifying his frustration.
Dinner's ready, Eric.
Her voice held the strained patience of a woman accustomed to being ignored. Eric barely registered her words. The splinter, a minuscule fleck of wood, had become his sole focus. Its presence, a sharp, nagging irritation, mirrored the unease festering within him. He glanced at the door, then back at the splinter. A drop of blood welled up, staining the wood a dark crimson. Claire entered the study, her presence barely acknowledged. The air hung thick with unspoken words, their silence a heavy shroud suffocating the room. She watched him for a moment, his brow furrowed in concentration, his jaw clenched tight. She knew better than to press him.
It's just a splinter, Eric.
She finally said, her voice soft, hesitant. He didn't answer, his focus unwavering. The silence stretched between them, a chasm carved by years of unspoken grief. The doorbell rang, a jarring intrusion into the tense quiet of the house. Steve, an old friend, stood on the porch, a hesitant smile on his face.
Just thought I'd drop by.
Steve said, his eyes flickering towards Eric. Eric barely looked up.
Can it wait, Steve?
Steve's smile faltered.
Everything all right, Eric?
Fine.
Eric mumbled, his attention returning to the splinter. Claire exchanged a worried glance with Steve. He knew about the treehouse, about the accident.
The conversation remained strained, punctuated by long silences. Remember that treehouse you built? The girls loved that thing.
The mention of the treehouse hung heavy in the air. Eric stiffened, his hand instinctively moving to cover the splinter.
Sighs. Excuse me.
Claire's eyes welled up. She excused herself, her retreat a familiar dance of pain and avoidance. Steve's gaze fell on the window, his eyes drawn to the overgrown backyard. Where lush grass now thrived, there once stood a magnificent oak, its branches reaching towards the sky.
It's been a long time.
Steve's voice was thick with emotion. Eric remained silent, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the splinter.
The girls would have been teenagers by now.
The words hung in the air, sharp and piercing, shattering the illusion Eric had so carefully constructed. The tree house, his daughters, the accident, it all came crashing down. Eric finally looked up, his eyes filled with a raw, unfiltered grief. The splinter, once a source of consuming focus, seemed insignificant now, a mere trifle compared to the gaping wound in his heart. His daughters were gone. The treehouse, a symbol of their laughter and joy, was gone. And he was left, trapped in a prison of his own making, the memory of that tragic day a constant, agonizing presence. He looked down at the splinter, a single tear splashing onto his hand. It was just a splinter, but the pain it represented, the pain he refused to confront, ran far deeper.